going to start with a risky question. How many of you are Deel clients? Please raise a hand. Okay, we've got one, two, we've got quite a few. Okay, cool. Thank you. So we're going to speak about the race to $100 million in ARR, or annual recurring revenue. And it has been a race. We've been really busy. The best thing about a race is winning, and we won. So I want to speak a bit about that. But we're going to start with introducing our founders, Alex and Shuo. You might think that Alex looks a little bit like Bruno Mars, or an iteration of Bruno Mars. Some people say that about Alex. But Alex and Shuo, they met at, wow, the school has vanished from my brain. MIT, Boston-based. Thank you, Matt. So Alex and Shuo met at MIT. They worked on startups before. Alex was doing something in social media. Shuo was doing something in air purification. The company was Aeris. But they came together and decided to start Deel. And I'll introduce myself. So I grew up in England, although my accent is a little bit messed up nowadays. Grew up on a farm in the northeast, just south of Newcastle. Got involved in tech pretty early on, so started at Revolut at the early age of 20. Originally a campus ambassador. I think Revolut gave me a job because I wouldn't leave them alone. I was incredibly persistent and kept asking them for a job. So joined them at an early stage, kind of considered that my postgraduate education. I was an analyst for the CEO for the first couple of years, went on to launch Revolut in the US, where I was a general manager, and became an investor. So I launched my own venture fund, or venture firm, Expansion Capital, which is basically syndicating ex-Revolut employees' funds and investing in other ex-Revolut employees' businesses, of which there are many. And one of the businesses we were involved in from an early stage was Deel, and Deel gave me the opportunity to become COO. So I took that on, and it's been a fantastic journey. Had a lot of fun. So how does Deel work? Well, I'm going to tell a story starting with the genesis moment. I met Alex and Shuo about 4 years ago. A mutual investor between Revolut and Deel introduced me. And Alex and Shuo said to me, "Hey, Dan, we want to build a platform which generates invoices and takes payment for invoices. And we want to do something in the cryptocurrency space." I said, "OK, that sounds quite cool. Let's build some software which generates an invoice and lets somebody pay for it in Ethereum." About 4 years ago. And you look at the early lines in the Deel database, the early rows, and the first transactions are indeed Ethereum. So I think we quickly realized that there are many products, platforms out there that help contractors generate invoices and accept payments for them. And we realized that HR and labor law was really a problem to be solved. For instance, if you're hiring an independent contractor in Eastern Europe, they probably have to register as an independent entrepreneur. They probably have to do a medical examination, and they probably have to pay some form of taxation up front. So we built a platform that helps independent contractors raise invoices and receive payment for that work. And that wasn't only valuable for the contractor, but also valuable for the company or the business, because the business is very, let's say, considerate that the contractor is not triggering misclassification, and the contractor is being paid properly, engaged properly, and we're probably familiar with the likes of Uber and other tech giants that hired their drivers and contractors, and then states and governments sued them over misclassification. So Deel 1.0 was helping contractors get jobs and helping companies manage misclassification risk. And we did this pre-pandemic. So we got product market fit. We scaled probably about 100 people pre-pandemic. We helped companies hire internationally. And then our growth really kind of exploded. Everyone wanted to hire internationally. Many of those companies that were our clients and many of those contractors that were working for them said, well, actually, we don't want to be contractors. We want to be employees. We want to have a pension. We want to have Social Security. We want to have paid time off. So we thought, let's do what's called employer of record, which is an interesting business because it's been around for decades. Employer of record has been around for, what I can tell, about 30 years. But if you dig a little bit deeper, it's probably been around for centuries. The basis for employer of record is forming an entity and employing people on behalf of someone else. So for example, let's say I form an entity here in Ireland, and I hire someone in Ireland, but they might work for my friend's company in the UK. That is, in very simple terms, an employer of record. So we did that, continued to grow, and then we ventured into global payroll. So we help companies now run their domestic payroll. So if you imagine now we've got a business that comes to us and says, well, I have my headquarters in Ireland. I have 50 employees here. I also want to hire contractors in Albania. I also want to hire an employee in Mexico. We can serve all of those needs. And we wrap that up into one platform. And the final piece that we're working on is HRIS, or Human Resource Information System. And that's really the system and information record of all your employees globally. And I think this is really topical given it's SaaStock, given RevOps systems are typically pretty distributed and disjointed. For example, I might use Salesforce for my GTM. I might use Intercom or Zendesk for my customer support, customer success. Maybe I'll use Gainsight or Vitally for signaling. But one of the issues many companies have is consolidation. How do all those systems talk to each other? And exactly the same problem occurs in HR. If you have one platform for contractors, one platform for EOR, one platform for global payroll, getting all of those systems to talk to each other is incredibly hard. And that's where Deel comes in. One system of record for all your HR needs. Cool. So we'll talk about our story so far. We went from $1 to $100 million ARR real quick, like 20 months quick, just under 2 years. So we've always optimized for speed at Deel, and we've branded this Deel Speed. It's a core part of Deel principles. We've always cared for the customer and our teammates, and I think that those two things combined have allowed us to get ahead in the race for $100 million in annual recurring revenue. And the final thing that we've really built our culture on is optimism and happiness, which sounds very cringy, if I'm honest, but we've hired optimistic people, we've hired happy people that bring a smile to the table, and the company's built on that. And here's the fruit of our labors. I said at the start that it was a race, and we did win. If you look at this chart, it's showing on the y-axis revenue, and on the x-axis time. And we got to 100 million from 1 to 100 in just under 2 years, which is ahead of Slack, Ramp, Twilio, which I'm really proud of. So now I'm going to go through some tips or some parts of our journey that I think might be tips. So we're going to start off with forecasting first. I actually think you shouldn't do this too early. I don't think forecasting is very important pre-1 million ARR. I think it can actually be a huge distraction. I think if you're getting product market fit and you're beneath $1 million in annual recurring revenue, you shouldn't forecast much at all. Your forecast should be done on the back of an envelope, and you shouldn't pay too much attention to it. But going from 1 to 100 is incredibly important, especially when it comes to selling, onboarding, and ops. Making sure that you're forecasting and hiring your headcount to forecast is incredibly important. The next part is trust the process. So we build process to solve problems. And without process, people don't really know what to do. You know, airports have been a topical thing this summer. Airports really run on process. How do you check in? How do you put your bag in? How do you get your bag? How do you board the plane? And I think process this summer in most European airports fell apart, mainly because of the staffing and workforce management. But you need to trust your process. Once you've built it, trust it. And when it starts to break, you iterate upon it. And you fix it. And luckily, I think many airports have fixed their processes, and it's now OK to travel again. Next one, be patient. So not entirely sure I agree with this slide too much, but Kieran helped me with this. Thank you, Kieran. I think I'd probably rename this to listen to your customers. So even now, 100 million plus in annual revenue, we're very advanced BI and data. You can probably still see what you need to see by talking to customers. So those guys who raised their hand, would love to speak to you after, but I can probably tell what I need to know through talking to you opposed to spending hours in front of BI dashboards. I think then the key thing is validating it with data. So if 5 customers tell me something, I then want to look at the data, validate that, and use the data to underpin my argument. Next up, scale your org. So I think it's really important to hire ahead. So if you're on that scaling journey, maybe you're going 0 to 1 or 1 to 100, you're probably speaking to candidates, and you might think, oh, well, that candidate's too senior for me right now. I'm going to hire them. They're going to start next Monday, but what are they going to do? They're used to managing a team of 50 people. They're used to dealing with these huge numbers, these huge problems. You should probably hire that person, hire ahead, and you will grow into them, and they will help you scale. Stick to your values. I think noting down your values at an early stage is really important. I mentioned deal speed. I mentioned happiness or default optimism. I mentioned caring for the customer. We have about 8 principles at Deel. I think noting them down really early is important, and hire people against those principles. Hire people that reflect those principles and will bring those principles to the table every day by default. I think data is really important to underpin what customers are saying. You can be distracted sometimes by opinions of people. Maybe someone has had a very anonymous experience, and that can distract you, and you can spend a lot of time, resource, and effort trying to solve that problem. Take what people are saying and then compare that to the data. See if that problem is affecting many people, and see if that problem is a high-impact problem to solve, and then go out and solve it. I think building sales support functions early on is a key part of SaaS scaling. Not only post-sales, customer support, and customer success, but only pre-sales. Make sure there's a pre-sales function to help your salespeople sell your product. I think that knowledge base, articles, that type of stuff can be incredibly helpful, but adding in a layer of pre-sales support will help you move faster. Salespeople should be able to ask questions from experts internally and then able to go back to the client and sell. That makes it really efficient. I think going global early is also a really important part, and I think that's really part of our success story. Given we're helping companies hire internationally, our global expansion was really easy. We have people in about 80 different countries globally. We actually started a global expansion into Brazil and Colombia, which are quite interesting markets. Previously had US and Western Europe, and we thought, hey, let's hire people in Brazil and Colombia. The cost of living is a little bit lower. We can hire really good country managers. They can sell the product, give us feedback so we can adapt the product, and they were really part of our success story. So first country manager we hired was in Colombia. Her name is Natalia. She's great. Second one was Cristiano. They built out a local book of business, local resources, local knowledge, and helped us sell into those local markets really quickly. And today we have an international sales program everywhere through Latin America, Africa, Middle East, Europe, Asia, and it's going really well. Cool. So I think listening to your team is just as important, if not more important, to listening to your customers. Making sure you have those feedback loops available. One of the things we practice at Deel is tell them. So let's use an example. Let's say somebody comes to me and says, oh, this person in marketing, let's use Kieran as the example, this guy in comms is giving me a hard time. He's not letting me release this article because it doesn't comply with some regulation or it isn't in line with our brand identity. Well, have you told Kieran? And most of the time, people will say, no, I haven't told Kieran. I'm like, OK, tell Kieran. And you tell Kieran, and then you work it out. So listen to your team, and also promote this tell them culture is really valuable. Be quick to experiment and execute. And don't listen to the status quo. For example, in payments, we listened to the status quo and thought that you should pay contractors and employees in a certain way. In actual fact, we designed a new way to pay them. So be prepared to iterate very quickly. And it loops back to my speed optimization point. If you optimize for speed, you can experiment and you can execute very fast. Churn is OK. I'm not sure if I agree with this. I don't want to see any customer churn. We care for our customers, and churn is scary, but not inevitable. I'm not sure I completely agree with that. But I think listen to the customers and then talk to them. And again, underpin it with data. If one customer is having a problem, there's a pretty high chance that many other customers are having the same problem. And I think make them feel like you care about them. You walk into a 5-star hotel, the reception staff make you feel like they care about you. That should be the same strategy with your customers. And thank you. Thanks for having me. First keynote out the way, so I think it went OK. If we've got time, we'd love to take questions.
Maybe time for just one question.
OK.
Show of hands, anybody? Then I'll come to you. This is your chance. Big man on stage? Nobody? No? Someone taking a nice picture of you, so maybe you want to smile for the camera?
There we go.
Are you on the networking app of SaaStock?
Yeah, Twitter, LinkedIn.
Yeah, so if there are any questions arising later, feel free to contact them if you get a networking app or Twitter or LinkedIn. And yeah, thank you, Dan.
Thanks.